Karen smirked, her manicured nails tapping the counter like she'd just won the lottery. Too bad the jackpot was a dead man's honor, pawned for pocket change. In the heart of small-town Ohio, where everyone knew everyone's business, Karen had a knack for making enemies and calling it business savvy. She ran a consignment shop, Karen's Keepsakes, a dusty corner store stuffed with chipped porcelain, faded quilts, and most recently a velvet box of military medals she'd bought for $50 from a desperate widow. Karen didn't ask questions. She saw dollar signs. The medals, gleaming with the weight of sacrifice, were priced at $500 for collectors with deep pockets and shallow hearts. What she didn't know was that those medals belonged to Sergeant Thomas Hargrove, a Vietnam War hero, and his niece, Special Agent Emily Hargrove, worked for the FBI's Artifact Recovery Division. Emily wasn't just family, she was a bloodhound for stolen valor. The trouble started when Karen listed the medals online. She'd snapped photos with her phone, the flash glinting off the Purple Heart and Bronze Star like they were costume jewelry. Her caption read, "Authentic Vietnam War medals. Great condition. Serious inquiries only." Within hours, the post pinged on Emily's radar. She'd been tracking stolen military artifacts for years, ever since her uncle's stories of courage fueled her career choice. Thomas had died quietly 2 years prior, his medals meant to stay with his widow, Clara, until grief and medical bills forced Clara to sell. Emily had promised to keep those medals safe, a vow etched into her soul. Seeing them on Karen's sleazy online storefront felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Emily drove 3 hours from D.C. to Ohio, her FBI badge tucked in her jacket, her anger barely contained. The shop's bell jingled as she stepped inside, the air thick with the musty scent of forgotten things. Karen stood behind the counter, scrolling through her phone, oblivious to the storm walking in. "Can I help you?" Karen asked, her voice dripping with that patented customer service sneer. Emily didn't smile. She pulled up the listing on her phone and slid it across the counter. "Where'd you get these?" Her tone was ice, each word a shard. Karen's eyes flicked to the screen, then back to Emily. "Bought 'em fair and square. What's it to you?" Her defiance was a reflex, honed from years of haggling with customers who dared question her prices. Emily leaned closer, her voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "They belong to my uncle, a veteran. You're selling his legacy like it's a garage sale trinket." Karen's smirk faltered, but only for a second. "Prove it," she snapped, crossing her arms. "I don't owe you a thing." The shopkeeper, Mr. Grayson, an older man with a stoop and a nervous tic, hovered near the back, pretending to dust a shelf. He'd known Clara, known the medal's story, but Karen had waved cash in his face to list them under her name. "It's just business," she told him. Now, as Emily's gaze burned holes through the room, Grayson's hands shook. He mumbled something about paperwork, but Emily wasn't listening. She pulled out her badge, letting it catch the light. "FBI Artifacts Division. You're trafficking stolen property, Karen. Want to keep playing dumb?" Karen's face went pale, but her mouth stayed stubborn. "Stolen? I paid for those. Clara sold them to me." Emily's jaw tightened. Clara had told her everything, how Karen had pressured her, exploiting her grief, offering pennies for priceless relics. "You knew she was vulnerable," Emily said, her voice trembling with rage. "You knew what those medals meant." Karen scoffed, doubling down. "She needed the money. I did her a favor. You gonna arrest me for capitalism?" The air crackled with tension. Grayson dropped a porcelain figurine, the crash punctuating the silence. Emily stepped closer, her height towering over Karen's defiant stance. "You didn't just buy medals. You stole a man's honor. My uncle carried shrapnel in his leg for 30 years. He saved lives. And you're profiting off his pain." Karen's eyes darted to the door, as if calculating her escape. But there was no running from this. Emily had already called in a warrant. Local police were en route, and the FBI's legal team was ready to bury Karen in charges trafficking stolen goods, fraud, exploitation. The confrontation reached its peak when Emily slammed the velvet box onto the counter, the medals clinking inside. "These aren't yours," she said, her voice breaking for the first time. "They're his. They're Clara's. They're mine." Karen's bravado cracked. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Grayson, wringing his hands, finally spoke up. "I told her it wasn't right," he stammered. "I told her to check the history." Karen whirled on him. "Shut up, Grayson. You took your cut." The betrayal stung, but it was nothing compared to the fire in Emily's eyes. As sirens wailed in the distance, Karen's empire of greed began to crumble. The police arrived, and Emily handed over the evidence: Clara's testimony, the online listing, and Karen's own receipts. Karen's protests grew shrill, but the cuffs clicked shut. "This is a mistake," she screamed as they led her out. Emily didn't watch her go. She stood by the counter, clutching the medals, her fingers tracing the cold metal. Each one told a story of jungles, gunfire, and a man who'd given everything. She thought of Clara, waiting at home, and the promise she'd keep tonight. But the victory was hollow. Clara's health was failing, and the money Karen paid was long gone to hospital bills. The medals were back, but the damage was done. Emily drove to Clara's house that night, the box in her lap. Clara wept when she saw it, her frail hands shaking as she held the medals close. "He'd be proud of you," Clara whispered. Emily nodded, but her heart ached. She'd won the fight, but the war against greed, against those who prey on the vulnerable, felt endless. The town buzzed with the story for weeks. Karen's shop closed, her reputation shredded. Some called her a villain. Others said she was just a product of a cutthroat world. Emily returned to D.C., the medals now safe in a museum display honoring her uncle. But the bitterness lingered. Karen had exposed a truth. Valor could be sold, and justice was never cheap. Emily kept working, chasing the next case, but she couldn't shake the image of Karen's smirk or the weight of her uncle's legacy in her hands. The law had spoken, but the heart of the matter remained unresolved. Karen's greed had torn open old wounds, and Emily's pursuit of justice couldn't heal them all. The medals were home, but Clara's grief and Emily's anger would never fully fade. The world kept turning, and somewhere, another Karen was making a deal, oblivious to the consequences waiting in the shadows. What do you think? Does justice ever fully mend the wrongs of greed? Or is it always a half measure? Share your thoughts on where the line falls between accountability and redemption.